What is good, Cardano fam, ADA gang? We have lots of exciting updates to unpack today. We're going to deep dive into multiple highlights and summaries of the fourth generation of cryptocurrencies. A fantastic presentation by Charles Hoskinson over in Singapore at Token 2049. This original video is linked in the description. Show some support. Everything's always linked below. And while you're here, guys, smash that subscribe, smash that like. Let's check out this little precursor before we deep dive into the highlights. The privacy aspect is the most important problem facing crypto today. AI will soon be able to piece together all public blockchain transactions. Privacy will be standard in the next generation of blockchains, just like HTTPS is standard in your browser. So Snowden highlighting the importance of privacy, and I really like this analogy of HTTPS, right? Everyone expects this, it's a standard. And I think moving forward, the way that Cardano, the way that IOG is moving when it comes to decentralization, compliance, and in this case, privacy, it's perfect. It's looking great in terms of narrative, and it's going to benefit many others as well. Let's check out these fantastic highlights by Stake with Pride, and then we'll go into a written summary as well. For the first time, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, BNB, Base, etc. will have incentives to come together.
So if you're an Ethereum, Solana, BNB, Base, Bitcoin, or Cardano developer, over time, you're going to be able just to basically query Midnight and do the private and identity stuff for your application. And you can pay your transaction fees with the underlying currency, Ether or Sol or Bitcoin or what have you. So you don't really care too much about tokens now, do you? I call these hybrid applications. They're good ideas. So if
And it makes sense. It makes sense because if you're using your own native currencies, then it eliminates that issue of like, why should I get this token? Because everyone loves their bags. Everyone hodls their own bags. And this way, whether it's ETH, BNB, whether it's Base, what have you, Sol, they can participate and take advantage of the network in a layer 2 aspect, these hybridized applications, and be invited. So I think Midnight's paper, that 12 to 15 page paper, my mind was blown when I saw that novel multi-consensus thing going on. And I think that this is addressing that issue with the VC bootlicker chains, because you just airdrop a bunch of networks and they can participate voluntarily. If they want to participate, they can. Let's check out the rest.
ordinarily, because I've been in the space so long, I kind of know all the dirty tricks. What you do is you go to a VC, they give you a bunch of money, they get founder tokens, and then they dump on retail when the network launches. You know who you are. You do. And they make great money. And then the ecosystem collapses, and the next thing goes, the next thing goes, the next thing goes. That's not how we get ahead. So instead, here's what we do. Just do something called a glacier drop. So you take 135 million accounts across all the major cryptocurrencies, you just airdrop to them. And if people want it, they mine it. In the process of mining it, they launch the network. So that's how you get a fair distribution, right? Everybody gets it.
And that's so excellent. If I recall correctly, in my tweet I put out while I was in Florida, producing blocks for the network, even though it's Ethereum or a different network. So I really like this approach, these hybridized applications, proof of work, proof of stake, multiple networks participating in this consensus.
You go talk to the Bitcoin maxis and they say, proof of work. You go talk to us in the third generation and we say, proof of stake. But you know what? You got to get your peanut butter and jelly together. So why can't we hybridize things and bring all the consensus protocols together? And guess what? If you have the validators maintaining the state of the system together, you can pay block rewards to them. So you start looking like a layer 2 to everybody. Doesn't that bring everybody together if every system is working together? So that's Midnight. It solves real problems. If you hold any of the major cryptocurrencies, you already own it. Congratulations, you're welcome. Papa Charlie took care of you.
I like that.
But this is what's going to bring the medical records in. This is what's going to bring ESG in with supply chains and measure the carbon of every business in the world. This is what's going to bring the financial markets in because you don't have to reveal your trading strategies to trade on chain. This is what's going to allow you to have DAOs that live 100% on chain because the DAOs, for the first time ever, can keep a secret. And thus, a real business can be on chain. And you know what? By giving it away to everybody, like Satoshi did with Bitcoin, just mine it if you want it, it means the whole industry, for the first time ever, has one thing that they can care about together and agree about.
And this is fantastic because it's addressing the issues of privacy. It has a great product market fit. I see a lot of people, and we'll see in a moment, there's a great tweet from Charles regarding like the new technology that is going to come down to Cardano, like mainnet. There's a lot of people who think that Midnight is just like IOG abandoning Cardano. That's not the case. If they didn't do this approach from a graphic designer, marketer, UX designer mindset, speaking personally, this is the right product market fit. Midnight is so elegant and invitational to all the networks, including Cardano, and the founding technology like Minotaur and all this stuff, it's going to waterfall down into Cardano. So it's a win-win. However you look at it, it's a win-win. And I really like the analogies that Charles discussed of like, let me see a show of hands who wants to show like their Amazon purchases or Google searches. So the need for privacy is important. We need those progressive disclosures. You can't have everything public. Businesses have different needs and we need to satisfy those needs in order to move towards mass adoption. Finally, the part 2.
I've gotten to a point where I just like solving problems. And I don't like working with the VCs, and I don't like the normal economics of this space. It would be really cool just to build something and give it to everybody that actually solves a real problem. So 6 years of hard work, we created something called Midnight. October 1st of this year, it's reaching the test net. It's been in the dev net for a little while. If you go to midnight.network, you can build on it. And the first thing we figured out on how to do with Midnight is we created a private smart contract stack called Keynote. And you can write smart contracts in TypeScript. Anybody can do that. It's a pretty simple language.
I like simple.
Bag holding. That's the world we live in. And guess what? You can never build an economy where people's financial incentives are at risk. People, no matter what their politics and beliefs are, will always default to their incentives. It's a reality of human nature. So then how can we build a space that has interoperability and everybody's working together and collaborating and it's good for the consumer if the system, by its very design, promotes, incentivizes, and rewards fragmentation? It's a problem. So that's the fourth generation in a nutshell. Is there a way to have computational privacy? Is there a way to have identity? Is there a way to get around the incentives problem and actually get everybody to work together? Nope. All right. Well, anyway, it's been great. Back.
Of course, he returns and says, yes, we have. That's Midnight. And one thing about that is that I remember in the presentation, like we have these account models, but what about the who, right? It's like you think of land in the real world. Like who owns that land? Reputation-based models. So we have the objective truth, which he mentioned in the presentation of like, you were born on XYZ date, right? Month, day, year. But what about the subjective one of like reputation? Someone might like you, someone else might despise you. So there's all these elements when it comes to privacy. And I think that Midnight is really taking it by the storm. Really excited to see other networks participate also.
So the fourth generation, the generation that's going to merge the legacy and the Web3 world and bring billions of consumers in, really the two big pillars of this is in addition to being scalable and interoperable and having good governance and programmability and decentralization, must have privacy, private smart contracts, and must have some concept of identity. So the fourth generation...
It's true. It's facts. That's just facts. Like at the end of the day, there's gonna be companies that can't. I mean, Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob, like he's got that secret recipe. He's probably gonna use midnight. You know what I'm saying?
Blockchains are super awesome at public stuff. They're auditable, timestamped, transparent, immutable. Good, great. You put it there like a domain name service. You put something there like a financial transaction. Everybody in the world can see it, believe it. It has integrity. Awesome. But what about the private stuff? What do we do with that? Do you like running a business where all your HR is public? You like running a business where all the money in the cash registers is public? How many people want all their Google searches to be public? Show of hands. Nobody? What about Amazon purchases? What about your political preferences? What about who you voted for in the election? Turns out that privacy is kind of part of the deal. And every real-world application, asset, business, transnational agreement always has two sides, a public side and a private side. The public side, we do well, and we're starting to master the art of programming it and scaling it and getting it done. But the private side is still something that's not clear, and in practice, how we're solving it is the same way we've always solved it. You pick somebody you trust, you give them the information, and you hope to God they don't lie.
That's facts. That's facts at the end of the day. And if you disagree, I mean, like, this is just the objective facts at the end of the day. Makes sense. So let's move on to just my written recap when I watched this video. And definitely, guys, make sure you smash the subscribe for that ADA fam algo, you know what I'm saying? The fourth generation of cryptocurrencies, token 2049. First generation, he discussed, Bitcoin 2010, 2011. There was no money at first, right? Very mission obsessed. Broad aspirations, decentralization, be your own bank. The second generation, right? Ethereum, smart contracts, programmability. JavaScript as like an example, Amazon, Facebook, Google, expensive, but like how to build the governance. Then kind of the third generation, the scalability, the cheap transactions, interoperability, governance, Optos, Algorand, Solana, Circle he mentioned, and more. Can build an internet of finance. Governance can harness capabilities of the people, which is massive value. Then enter the fourth generation, right? So this is like midnight and whatnot. Real world assets, DAOs, business on blockchain. And there's a problem, right? Blockchains are awesome at public stuff, auditable, timestamps, immutable. But what about the private stuff? Every business has a public and private side, as Charles said. But what about the identity, the who, selective disclosure, private smart contracts, some concept of identity, challenge of identity, objective versus subjective. So I was mentioning like reputation as an example. And people will always default to their incentives. Their bags, my bag is better than your bag. So that's why this approach with the Glacier airdrop is so novel. So he mentioned midnight, October 1st, reaching testnet, created a private smart contract stack, building a hybrid application model, Ethereum, Solana, BNB Base, Bitcoin, Cardano. Developers can query midnight and can do privacy identity stuff for their applications. Paying with their native currency. So hybrid applications pay with your native currency. Because normally a VC gets a bunch of founder tokens, dumps on retail, and the ecosystem collapses, right? We see that time and time again. IOG will do a Glacier drop, take 135 million accounts across all the major cryptocurrencies and just airdrop to them. And if people want it, they mine it. In the process of mining it, they launch the network. This is like a fair distribution. Very novel. In the process of doing this, IOG invented a new protocol, Minotaur, a multi-resource consensus, allows you to maintain a blockchain with multiple consensus protocols at the same time. Think about that. So Bitcoin says proof of work. Third generation says proof of stake and whatnot, right? Midnight hybridizes paying block rewards to multiple networks, looking like a layer 2 to everybody, or a layer 1 in itself. It solves real world problems. If you hold any major cryptos, you already own it. You have hybrid applications and you pay in the currency you love. You don't have to leave the network effect of your network. You can borrow security and consensus from all the other systems. Your consensus layer is directly observing all of the major cryptocurrencies, meaning you're also the single best Oracle chain and bridge system around. Because you have the privacy tech, you have upgradable recursive snarks, you can use it as a data availability layer and more. Now, I'm not a developer to comment more on the recursive snarks and whatnot, but you get the gist of it, guys. It's very exciting, and I highly recommend checking out the original video. Great clip from Minturn. Breaking news, Cardano cannot be stopped. Charles Hoskinson has the second highest views out of the Token 2049 talks. It's probably actually the highest. And guys, you know, why is it that Charles has, 6.7k views, and there's videos with like 150 views, 42 views. So you can definitely bamboozle numbers, okay, at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm not going to comment more. I'm just saying that not all networks are the same. Charles replies to a post with a nice comical cheeky reply. DAOscope saying, Vitalik calls for more transparency in Ethereum's governance, urging clear metrics for alignment, including open source standards, reduced centralization, and public goods support. This aims to unify projects and foster a positive sum ecosystem. So, hey, I mean, nice color selection there, the blue. So, hey, Vitalik, just come on over to Team Cardano while you're at it. You're welcome to the ADA gang, the Cardano fam, and I guess an appropriate reply. Now, this one, guys, brace yourself. This one's a little long read, but we need to go through this because it's good to demystify some misconceptions. And so, you know, people are like obviously concerned, like, wait, like, is Cardano going to be old tech and midnight is like the future? Here we have a reply saying, I won't blame people that think Cardano is old tech if we keep calling advertising midnight as fourth generation blockchain, whereas Cardano called third generation. Rick responded saying, yeah, I would rather upgrade Cardano base layer 1 to a fourth gen than a fifth gen, and so on. Charles says, you don't say, and linked a bunch of images here. I read through it, and let's go through this together, shall we? So Cardano uses the Ouroboros protocol as its underlying consensus layer. Ouroboros enables energy-efficient proof-of-stake operation and an unbounded number of active participants, following a blockchain discipline akin to Nakamoto's longest chain protocol logic. There are still many ways in which the Ouroboros protocol can be improved to accommodate the demand for transaction throughput and processing that will come as the Cardano ecosystem expands. We present below the 7 different research and development directions that we identify as critical to be pursued to evolve the protocol to its final form, Ouroboros Omega, the final letter in the Greek alphabet. Fast settlement, T1. The Cardano ledger is currently supported by Ouroboros Praos, which is a longest chain, proof-of-stake type ledger consensus protocol. Such protocols exhibit several desirable robustness features such as tolerance to fluctuating participation and self-healing from temporary periods of adversarial dominance. However, a well-understood downside of longest chain consensus is that it only provides eventual settlement requiring a sufficient number of blocks to appear on top of a transaction of interest to consider it settled. This property of the main chain might impede adoption and complicate deployment of various layer 2 functionalities envisioned for the Cardano ecosystem, including bridges to transfer assets between layer 2 and layer 1. So does this sound familiar to you guys? Let's continue on. Throughput to the physical limits. Increasing throughput to meet demand is key to the continuous growth of a blockchain ecosystem. While layer 2 approaches can accommodate demands for large throughput for specific applications, it is still crucial to ensure that layer 1 itself can absorb the largest possible throughput that can be admitted. The current Ouroboros design, Praos, is almost at its limits with respect to throughput, as increasing the block production rate or block size further may negatively affect the protocol's security. Alternative designs proposed by others or explored in other projects, on the other hand, are either not analyzed at a satisfactory level or sacrifice important security guarantees, such as self-healing or liveness in the presence of relative adversarial majorities. In this research and development effort, the team will investigate maximizing throughput of the Ouroboros line of protocols to the physical limits of the underlying network and dealing with highly concurrent transaction processing. Additionally, the physical characteristics of the underlying network should be carefully modeled. The natural KPI for this research and development effort is the protocol achieved throughput. The relevant Ouroboros variant is called Laos, meaning smooth in Greek. See where we're headed, guys? We're hitting for smooth. As it fundamentally incorporates a continuous flow of operation that distributes transaction processing effort equitably across the SBO population via the input endorsers mechanism. In this thread, the design will also take advantage of and investigate the concurrency properties of the underlying Plutus smart contract programming model. So guys, we are headed in the right direction, I believe. Continuing on, we're almost there, guys. Fair transaction processing, a smart contract ledger serializes incoming transactions. In an account-based setting, the order of serialization affects the outputs and effects of each transaction in the ledger state. On the other hand, in an EUTXO ledger, processing some transactions first may invalidate other transactions waiting to be processed. It follows that in both cases, the order of serialization matters in assessing the transaction's effect in the ledger state. This is an important issue in the DeFi setting, where some participants may front-run transactions that are diffused in the network for monetary gain. Moreover, it puts the entities that are choosing the ordering of transactions in a block at an advantageous position because they can front-run or be paid to favor certain orderings over others. Does that sound familiar on other networks, right? Front-running, favoritism. To mitigate this issue, this research thread will explore techniques that provide order fairness, namely they enable the ledger to serialize transactions in a way consistent with when the transactions, it's a typo there, when the transactions were diffused in the network, and how such techniques can be incorporated into the Cardano ledger. Relevant KPIs are the processing overhead that order fairness introduces to the blockchain processing, as well as the degree of fairness that can be achieved. The degree here is relevant because it is known that perfect order fairness is impossible to achieve. Byzantine resilient networking in a blockchain protocol, the backbone that allows for a seamless operation and robustness is its networking infrastructure. I think we are at the last one right here. Yep. So multi-resource consensus, Minotaur, and this is why it's key. This is why we needed to read the precursor to this, right? Minotaur, we hear that mentioned. This is part of that the novel multi-consensus going on with Midnight. In permissionless blockchain protocols, the right to create a new block is determined by a resource-based lottery such as proof of work or proof of stake. Such protocols can be shown to be secure as long as the adversary controls a minority, or in some cases, less than a third of the resources applied to the system. In multi-resource consensus, the block lottery is based on a mix of different resources. For example, proof of stake together with proof of work. And block leadership can be gained in two ways, by possession of stake or by doing work. The motivation for this is twofold. First, it can be assumed that controlling a substantial fraction of multiple resources may be harder to achieve than just a single one. Second, admitting different ways of contributing to block production and obtaining rewards for it is more inclusive, as some methods may not be accessible to everybody. For example, legal barriers. In the Minotaur protocol was presented to achieve consensus based on multiple resources that is secure as long as the adversary controls a minority of the combined resources. Furthermore, it allows for an arbitrary weighting of the applied resources to grade how much the security depends on the possession of each one of them. Minotaur is an extension of Ouroboros Praos, where the role of stake is replaced by so-called virtual stake, collated from individual proofs across all resources. Multi-resource consensus can be made available. Here's the key we're about to reach. Where are we here? It's getting pretty long, right, guys? Multi-resource consensus can be made available for Cardano sidechains in different forms, but can also be incorporated into the main chain of Cardano, enabling it to incorporate other forms of resources beyond, so on and so forth. So it just clips off there. But as you can see, this technology will cascade and then some. Cardano was already developed for upgradability. And so I think people are getting a little too lost, a little ahead of themselves, confused in their emotions, thinking that Midnight is just like, oh, we're done with Cardano. No, it's to make a very elegant, beautiful product market fit. And the research there is clearly going to cascade. And you heard it right there, right at the bottom of this. Multi-resource consensus can be made available for Cardano sidechains, and can also be incorporated into the main chain of Cardano. So it's just a matter of time, guys. And as we heard, they are doubling down over at IOG. So we're going to see some amazing stuff, I think, in terms of multi-resource consensus, other participants, side chains, throughput, and all that jazz. What a fantastic time for Cardano, guys. So a lot to absorb, guys, a lot to absorb. SNEK.fun has the most transactions of any Cardano DEX in the last 30 days. Our prediction was correct, guys. We thought that SNEK.fun was going to have the best product market fit, and lo and behold, it does. It's doing fantastic. So I think SNEK has a fantastic branding. Speaking of SNEK, a massive buy, I think it was a day or two ago, almost 90,000 worth of ADA, 90,000 ADA worth of SNEK. So big buys coming in for SNEK. And last but not least, Wanchain, the prominent Cardano Bridge Wanchain, got a shout out. It was featured on CoinDesk, and they were discussing pain points and solutions with CBDCs and interoperability and having true interoperability. I won't bore you guys with that. It's a great read. And it goes into detail about achieving interoperability, how some countries are still a little bit hesitant. And even with countries that are hesitant, if other countries decide to pilot it and go right ahead, then the Web3 friendly countries may adopt what they're doing. And some of the pain points that were highlighted by them in the article were just the abundance of so many L1s, so many L2s. So it's a good read, and it's great to see a bridge that has prominent activity with Cardano being featured over on CoinDesk. So last but not least, guys, let's finish off with a reminder, because today has been a very information overload, but midnight is exciting. Just to remind everyone, Charles Hoskinson will not be in Dubai for the Foundation Summit. He will be in Argentina for the Buenos Aires Cardano Summit. And so alongside the president, of course, as well, keynoting. He did say, I'll present on the future of Cardano. It will be live streamed for everyone to watch and cover the next roadmap after Voltaire, and also marketing, branding, and growth. So when people say when marketing, I mean, we see so much presence from Charles Hoskinson. So point at another founder who is that active, I don't know of, right? So it is what it is. We haven't held the 40 cents, guys. I made a tweet when 50 cent. We haven't held the 40 cent. So again, I say that the downside volatility, we're going to continue. I don't think that we're out of the downside volatility just yet. I think the colder months ahead are going to be more telling of when altcoin season is going to start. I do think that we can easily surpass the previous all-time high. $5 to $7 is easily can happen. And I think the timing, I think Q1, Q2. I think people are very impatient with their expectations, and key metrics to watch are going to be like search queries, Bitcoin dominance, Bitcoin global search. So long as Bitcoin dominance is high, so long as Bitcoin global search is low, we're not in altcoin season officially. So don't get bamboozled by like people who think that altcoin season is here and none of the projects will pump. Simply look at the metrics and the lines. And when it comes to Midnight, we can clearly see that Midnight has been developed as a fantastic product. I definitely recommend reading the light paper that they have. It's like a 12 to 15 page read. And we can clearly see, as stated in that reply by Charles, which by the way, there's another reply below, which I'm not going to make any claims about. But if you take a look here, also another, where was it? Aha, here. And the rocket is on the launch pad, whatever that means. But I'm not going to make any comments on this. But what I will say is that we can clearly see how the research and the knowledge is cascading into Cardano as well. So I don't think that, I personally don't see Midnight as like them abandoning Cardano. No, I think this is a very smart business decision, and it's going to bring more people and more net users to Cardano and just benefit crypto as a whole. So it's going to be good for Cardano, good for Midnight, good for Web3, good for mass adoption. Let me know what you guys think about Midnight. What do you guys think about Minotaur and the advancements for Cardano? And what are your thoughts about Midnight just in general? I think it's looking really good. The more that I learn about Midnight, the more exciting it is. And I didn't expect Charles to do this kind of 135 million account airdrop to all the major cryptocurrencies, this glacier airdrop. So guys, hit that subscribe, hit that like. I'll see you in the next Angry Crypto Show.